Surrogacy is an arrangement in which a woman bears a child for another couple or person. The term surrogate mother or surrogate is usually applied to the woman who carries and delivers the child on behalf of another couple. There are two main types of surrogacy. This includes traditional surrogacy and gestational surrogacy. Traditional surrogacy relates to a surrogate who is artificially inseminated with the intended father's or donor's sperm, thus making the surrogate mother genetically related to the offspring. Gestational surrogacy, however, is when the embryo results from the IVF of gametes from the donors or the intended parents. Therefore, there is no genetic connection between the surrogate and the surrogacy child. Branching off these two main types of surrogacy, there are two ways of recruiting surrogate mothers. Altruistic surrogacy is a process usually found among family, friends, and acquaintances or by advertisement. The surrogate in this situation is only repaid for her medical expenses and any lost income resulting from the pregnancy. On the other hand, commercial surrogacy is the recruitment of a surrogate through an agency. The surrogate mother's medical expenses are reimbursed and she is paid for her gestational services. There are a number of ways in which surrogacy can be made possible. Assisted reproductive technology has enabled both partners in a relationship to use their own gametes to create their own unique embryos and for these embryos to be transferred to a surrogate host. This has meant that although the female partner of the couple wanting the child may have no uterus, she is still able to have her own genetic child or children. The process of surrogacy includes the removal of an egg from the intended mother or anonymous donor, to which the egg is then fertilized with the sperm of the intended father or anonymous donor. The fertilized eggs or embryos are then transferred to a surrogate using IVF, who carries and delivers the baby. There are certain expectations for a surrogate mother. A surrogate mother must have good overall health that will allow her to undergo a pregnancy with the minimum risk to her own health. A surrogate mother should also preferably have given birth to at least one child previously or have completed her own family. Donation of eggs should be limited to those up to 35 years old, as increasing age means an increase in the risk of chromosomal abnormalities. And as risk in pregnancy increases with age, a surrogate's mother's age should also be limited up to the same cutoff age. From the psychological aspect, being a surrogate mother is an emotionally and physically demanding task. It is advisable that a surrogate mother has all the support necessary from her own family, especially during and after the pregnancy, as surrogacy is not something to enter into lightly. Surrogacy becomes an option to many couples as there are quite a number of people who are unable to conceive naturally. In general, 1 in 10 couples experiences primary or secondary infertility. The indications for treatment include recurrent miscarriage and certain medical conditions, total or partial absence of the uterus, either of congenital origin or after surgery, and multiple failure of infertility treatment. There is also increasing demands for surrogacy from homosexuals and lesbians, whereby genetically related offspring can be a real possibility. The gay male couple community are a big contributor to the amount of children who are surrogate children. The most recent report from the British Medical Association in 1996 states that surrogacy is an acceptable option of last resort in cases where it is impossible or highly undesirable for medical reasons for the intended mother to carry a child herself.
Surrogacy is not a cheap process for anyone involved, but rather a quite expensive one. The costs are determined by the consultations, procedures, surrogacy rates per baby, time, waiting lists, and companies involved. The price of surrogacy differs across countries, but some we have chosen range from $15,000 to $100,000 US in Australia, from $98,000 to $147,000 in the USA, from $45,500 US in the Ukraine, from $40,000 US in India. There are many reasons that surrogacy is seen as beneficial. However, there are still associated risk factors and issues that lead people to disagree with surrogacy. Some of these include: there are medical risks associated with surrogacy. Babies conceived through IVF are at higher risk of premature birth, low birth weight, and birth defect. As well as medical risks associated with surrogacy, there is concern among researchers that risk of exploitation due to differences in socioeconomic status between the surrogate mother and the intended parents. This can be seen to objectify women, especially in low socioeconomic status. Many problems associated with surrogacy have been related to traditional surrogacy. This brings out the most concern to commissioning couples, as the host may wish to retain custody of the child. This raises questions about the custody of the child. Surrogate mothers are the legal parents of the child until it is born. In fact, till the time parental rights have been handed over to the biological parents, the surrogate mother can keep the child if they wish to. However, the surrogate mother could be under legal contract prior and therefore must hand over the baby to the parents. If she fails to do so, there are consequences that can be associated, and these form from the contract that they had binded.
Victoria, under the Infertility Act 1985, Section 59 states that a surrogate motherhood arrangement involving payment is prohibited. Those receiving payments commit offence. The legislation also prohibits any advertisement seeking surrogacy arrangement, even if it's not for a reward. If it did happen, the surrogate motherhood contracts would be void. Next comes is South Australia. South Australia, punishment or imprisonment would be given to the offender who receives or in the expectation of receiving valuable consideration from a third person who seeks the benefit of the surrogacy contract. The Act also prohibits any advertisement relating to surrogacy. In Queensland, the Surrogate Parenthood Act 1998 prohibits all forms of surrogacy, including altruistic surrogacy. Breaching the law will involve criminal sanctions. In Australian Territory Capital, Canberra, under the Substitute Parent Agreement Act 1994, commercial surrogacy arrangements are prohibited, but non-commercial surrogacy agreements are void.
In developed countries such as Australia, UK, and USA, surrogacy laws are slightly different. Most of the US states don't allow the use of traditional surrogacy, although it is more common to be known to go through surrogacy agencies. In the United Kingdom, laws are similar to Australia, where it is illegal to pay a surrogate more than the expenses of the procedure or operations. In developing countries such as India, commercial surrogacy is illegal. Couples of homosexuality basis and single parents were no longer allowed to become parents through surrogacy. India also states that in their laws, anyone that isn't Indian intended parents and have not been married for more than 5 years cannot complete a surrogacy through commercial surrogacy. Ethics has a huge part in surrogacy. How much of an autonomous choice does a surrogate have? Actually, the surrogate has a mass amount of an autonomous choice, including the choices to terminate and refuse giving the parents the child. There's a lot of lack of justice in the surrogacy process. After the pregnancy, the surrogate has been removed from the picture. This means that the surrogate's connection to the child has been cut off and can cause a lot of depression and harm to both the baby in its health and the surrogate alone. Like anything, religion can play a big part in people's lives and their influences. Surrogacy can become controversial when it comes to different religions and not accepting the processes that surrogacy undertakes. The Catholic Church is strongly against all forms of assisted conception, particularly those associated with gamete donation and surrogacy. Surrogacy is not forbidden in Jewish religion, which is very much family orientated and which lays a duty on Jews to have children. In the Jewish religion, the children born as a result of surrogacy will belong to the father who gave the sperm and the woman who gave birth. The Islamic views appears to be absolute in that, in the same way as the use of donor sperm is strictly forbidden in all schools. Surrogacy can be beneficial for individuals and couples in creating a family of their own. We should also address the issues of unwanted babies first. Surrogacy is a lengthy and complicated process. If people are willing to undergo surrogacy, they might be willing to try adoption. Payments to surrogate mothers should cover only genuine expenses, which should be supported with documentary evidence. Additional payments should be prohibited in order to prevent surrogacy arrangements being entered into the financial benefit. In conclusion, surrogacy is a global practice which has been present for a long time. Different societies have different attitudes, even among the most liberal and developed societies. Internationally, the general trend has shown to discourage the practice. IVF surrogacy is, however, a successful treatment for a small group of women who would otherwise not be able to have their own genetic children. Our questions to you. Should the surrogate-born child have an autonomous choice to remain in the custody and care of the surrogate mother?